record this, and there we go. So probably somebody else has arrived. Yes, Sarah's arrived, so I'm just gonna mark her present. Sarah, where we go. Save that, and let's get into ooh, do I dare open this up in a full page? You guys don't need a full page on this, do you? I mean, you can see it like this. Well, I suppose we could try. But last time I did that, it started running away on me. It's like it was automatic or something. I don't know if, yeah, so let's see. If I don't touch it, is it going to go forward? Because if it is, I'll stop. Yes, it is. So, so what's happened is the person who edited this last, it's one of the other teachers, he's put in some automatic sort of timing on it. So yeah, we're not going to do it that way. I don't like that way. We're going to do it this way. So nonverbal communication, we've already talked about that a little bit. You can tell what a person is feeling, I suppose you could say, a little bit maybe about what they're thinking by the way their face and their hands and their body are oriented. Now that's something that we do sort of almost without a lot of sort of analytical processing. That's something that happens almost automatically. And that's something that people have been doing as long as there's been people. And that's why our faces are so expressive, right? I mean, you know, because that's giving a lot of information. And so that's why we're always looking at people's faces, because it is giving us a lot of information that we need to know about our relationship with that person. And we talked about this also. When we're on the phone, we have an added problem or challenge, which is how do we communicate to people positivity? And there is a way of doing that, I suppose, which is in our voice. We can keep our voice not too low, which sounds like we're sort of tired, but not too high, which sounds like we're kind of anxious. So sort of a little bit of high tone sort of shows some excitement. Well, that's good, you know, that you're happy to talk to somebody. But on the other hand, we don't want to see it sound too anxious. So a little bit of a trick to that, which you'll get with a bit of experience, I suppose. These things always work, right? Being respectful, particularly being attentive, which means sort of looking at somebody when they're talking to you. That really goes a long way. First place, yeah, it's just kind of rude not to. So there's that. So, I mean, if somebody thinks that you're rude, then you sort of lost that conversation already. But the other thing is, by looking at them, you're going to get a lot of information besides just what they're saying. And so that's very, very, very good for you to sort of be able to look at people, observe them, observe their emotions as well as their words. Talked about the tone of voice. So tone of, yeah, I don't think we did mention these things though, right? Tone of voice has these things in it, right? So we have the energy, which is going to be partly by the volume. Yeah, okay, these all things are kind of related. The pitch is how high or how low it is, and how fast you're speaking. Now, so any of these, if you ramp them up too much, it sounds like a lot of anxiety. On the other hand, if any or all of these things are down too much, it sounds like you're bored or tired or whatever. So we have to sort of find the right medium. And the other thing is they shouldn't just be constant. So we can sort of modulate, you know, a little bit more energy from time to time, a little bit more faster speech, slower speech, higher, lower volume and pitch, etc. That makes it sound like we're sort of interested in what's going on. And it also makes it more interesting to other people. So your energy, as it says, reflects your personality and your attitude, reflects how awake you are, and how interested you are. So by the awake, I do mean that interested, right? I mean, so if you're really sort of bored, that's if you are that tired that you can't sort of bring any energy to the conversation, you probably need to have some coffee. Okay, so well, it's Ramadan, so you're not having coffee then, but you know, you need to sort of plan your day so that you're not having those important conversations when you're sort of really, really flat. False enthusiasm, you know, you can tell kind of when people are faking it a bit, right? Basically, that's what it's all about. Volume, if it's too loud, that seems like you're shouting at people. On the other hand, if you're working in a busy environment, that's gonna interrupt with other people's conversations as well. So yeah, the pitch, I think I talked about that. We can do things with the way that we hold our head to change the pitch of our voice very, very almost automatically. And how, as it says, the posture. If you were going somewhere to learn how to speak as an actor or a poet reader or a singer, then you would learn that people try and do that when they're standing up rather than sitting down or lying down, because that they're able to use the power of their lungs a lot better. So the breathing and your posture, holding yourself erect, being able to use your full rib cage to get the power and to modulate it, right? And so those things that they help. And the tone of voice. I think you guys know what a tone of voice is, which is kind of disrespectful and sharp. And we've sort of wanted to avoid that. Have a tone of voice which is forgiving. People are going to come to us, they're going to make mistakes, especially our customers, and we're going to make mistakes. And that's a part of it. And sort of a forgiving tone is pretty obvious too, right? If it's a sharp tone, that's kind of judgmental. And we want to try to sort of avoid that. It's actually just a good thing generally, right? To be like that. It just makes your life a little easier. Okay, so what about our customers? Now the next few slides, and this will bring us to the end of this topic, because we got about 10, 12 slides, is that people have different personalities. Now, if you went and talked to a bunch of psychologists, the modern ones will come up with this sort of, we've got 5 general sort of scales that we represent people on, and on each of those 5 scales, each person will score somewhere on that scale, and that represents different personality types. So the idea is that just almost automatically, if you want to put it that way, but sort of you have a default sort of personality, which is you. And it's not the same as anybody else, really. I mean, but there are sort of 5 general categories of personalities, and there's 5 different areas that we can measure on their personality. So, for example, one of them is on your sociality, I guess you'd say, right? So, are you introverted or are you extroverted? And how we sort of discuss that is we say, well, are you a person who gets energy by being around other people? Or are you a person that you get your energy by being by yourself? And none of us is exactly on one or either end of that scale. We're somewhere in between, but we're all on a sort of like a different point in between. So some of us like to spend an hour or so every day just being by ourselves, and we get energized by that. Those people, you'll know them because when you go to a party, after about 2 hours at the party, right, those people are looking for the door and trying to find the excuse to go home. Whereas the people that are the extroverts, when they're by themselves, they don't know what to do, right? They're sitting there with their phone calling everybody up or something because they're an extrovert. They got to be around people because when they're by themselves, they sort of feel a bit flat. But when everybody else is around, they feel really, really good. And we all sort of fit somewhere in that scale, but probably not exactly on one end or the other. Now you take all of that's one of the 5 dimensions. There's other dimensions too. You've got the dimension of neuroticism. So some people, every little thing worries them. Like, they're anxious all the time. They're always thinking about what's happening in the future. Some people are just sort of chill, right? I mean, don't really care, right? It's just like everything is sort of positive. And so we all sort of fit somewhere in that line. Now, when I say we all fit in that line, that doesn't mean that fixes us and there's nothing we can do about it. When we know what our natural or default personality is, we can do things to strengthen the things that we think, well, I'd like to, I'm a bit of an introvert. I really do like to be by myself, but I recognize that my career would be better if I spent a bit more time with other people. So I'd like to do that. Maybe there's some exercises that I could do that will get me out amongst other people. Yeah, people do that kind of stuff. That sort of personality development, you could say that. So you don't have to sort of be fixed in one thing. You can actually do things to strengthen your personality, and you can see the parts of your personality that are that you think you'd like to change a little bit. so that you could be a bit more successful. All right, so if we looked at all these dimensions, we could say that when our customers are communicating, so this is how their personality is reflected to us. We can say that we've got these different things. Now, this is what some psychologists came up with. Now, another bunch of psychologists at another time, at another place, might come up with some different categories. Okay, so it's not sort of fixed in stone or something, but it's an observation and they put some words to it and it kind of makes sense. And so we're using it. Okay, so that's what it is, right? So we would notice when we talk to people on the phone, some people seem to be know-it-alls, some people are aggressors, some are complainers, some are passive, and some are amiable. So let's talk about those. With each of these different types, and we'll be able to notice this when the people get on the phone and they're talking to us, or if they're in front of us, then there's a different things that we might have to sort of consider. You know, the way that we're going to communicate with a know-it-all might be a little bit different than the way we're going to communicate with an amiable person. And we'll talk about that in the next couple of lessons. So, for example, you got to know it all. They're the person that they're on the phone. They're going to tell you, okay, so this is the problem. This is what you need to do to fix it. And, they might actually, this is a problem with know-it-alls, is actually sometimes their facts are wrong. And, but this is the problem. Because they're a know-it-all, you can't just sort of say to them, sorry, your facts are wrong, because, and definitely we can't say, you're kind of dumb, you don't know anything, you can't say that, right? So what you'll say instead is, okay, so yeah, that sounds good. In my experience, we could also try this, which is not too personal, not putting them down, but just sort of sharing some information with them to help them point them in the right direction, because the know-it-all, if they knew it all, they wouldn't need you to fix it, right? But they think they know. And so we're not telling them, no, you're wrong, or we're saying, hey, what if we tried this? In my experience, this also works. Now, the aggressor, so they're the one that they're kind of related to that know-it-all in a way. I mean, maybe a person could be a know-it-all and an aggressor, I guess. But, they're going to they're going to want to control the conversation. They're going to want to control what's going on. And so with them, they might start sort of being demanding and stuff like that. What you need to do is you need to sort of get a little bit of that control of that conversation for yourself. And how you do is you call them out by their name, right? So, hey, Mark, this and this and this. And they tend to respond to that type of thing. Here's some other things we could do with them and say, let me understand the situation. I can help you. Understand how this is affecting you. Let me see how I can help. They like that kind of stuff, that type of personality. And I hope that you don't think that what I'm saying here is at all judgmental, right? We love people. We love all kinds of people. We love all these different personalities. They're all kind of good. We need all different kinds of people. But, we have to deal with them slightly differently. And as I said a few minutes ago, we need to be forgiving. People will come to us and they're going to do stuff that isn't, that we wish they didn't. But, maybe they had a hard day. And that's the kind of way that we need to approach this, right? People, if everything was going good in their life, they wouldn't be on the phone to you, right? Because they'd be on their way home instead of picking that computer. And so, we have to sort of take it from that point of view. So yeah, the complainer, what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to talk about everything that went wrong, maybe for a long time. Okay. And so, there's going to be maybe some emotion in that. And this is where our empathy comes in, right? So we empathize with them. Now, empathy doesn't mean sympathy. They're kind of two different things. Sympathy means that, oh, I want to help you. I want to fix it for you, right? Now, of course, we want to fix things. But sympathy would mean that we'd want to do it the way they want it. Maybe there's a different way that needs to happen. So with the person who's the complainer, we need to bring that empathy across, because they're basically communicating to us their sort of emotional distress with the circumstance. And so we need to bring the fact that we sort of understand them, or we have to get to the point where we do understand. All right, now the passive, they're kind of difficult to work with. And you might say, well, how is that difficult? So because a passive person, they're on the phone and they're basically not really saying too much. Maybe we had to call them up. And so they're going to be hard to sort of, there's a saying, like pulling teeth to get information out of them. And so what that means is they don't really want to sort of talk to us too much. And so what we have to do is we have to not give them opportunities to sort of close that off. So sorry, my son's a gamer. Excuse me for a second. So sorry about that. So yeah, the passives, the problem with them is that they don't want to sort of open up too much. And so what we have to do is don't give them opportunities to sort of close down the conversation and just sort of be passive there. So what we do is we use open-ended questions. Can you please tell me about this? That's what we mean there, open-ended questions. One where it requires a longer response for it, not a yes/no answer. And we have to sort of, we're going to use silence on them, right? I mean, if they don't say anything, we don't jump in and fill the gap of the silence with us talking. You know, we'll ask them a question and we just wait. And that becomes a bit uncomfortable for them. And, you know, so we're using that to get them to sort of speak to us. So that's what we mean by resisting the temptation to jump in and put words in their mouth. Let them sort of bring that to them. It's actually good for them. It might sound like we're putting a bit of pressure on them. We are by asking them a question, then waiting. But it's good for them because they need to have some encouragement to bring that communication to us. One there I skipped over, sorry, was the amiable. So yeah, the amiable person, you know, they're going to be on the phone and they're just going to, you know, they're going to be telling you about their family and, you know, what they did on the weekend and, you know, where they've been traveling and, you know, what their hobbies are and, you know, all about animals or whatever, right? There's going to be, they just like to talk to people. And so these ones, you need to sort of focus them because they're going to go off on this big tangent, which has nothing to do with what the problem is. And so you're going to have to focus them on what it is. And so you're going to have to bring them back to the problem at hand. So bringing them with questions that require a yes/no answer. You know, can you do this now? Is your computer responsive at this point now? And don't give them opportunities to sort of run off too much in sort of any random direction. Yeah, so I hope this makes sense. I think we have touched on this before about the fact that we may have a different language set than our customer does. If we're working at a college, you know, people there tend to talk in terms of educational terms. They're going to talk about pedagogy. They're going to talk about GPAs. They're going to talk about learning environments and learning systems. Whereas your IT people, they're more interested in sort of servers and IP addresses and you know, software, that type of thing. And so we have a bunch of sort of special words and they have their own special words. It's really good for us to learn their special words and not use our special words unless they're aware of them, right? So that's what we mean by jargon and acronyms. We should know what a GPA is if we're working at a college. If we're working at an insurance company, you know, we should know what accruals are and we should know what the different insurance premiums are and stuff like that. Those types of things so that we can talk to them. I have personal experience with that. I mean, I worked in a telephone company, you know, this like 30 years ago in Australia, and I worked in IT, and I was in a service desk type job. And actually, I was account manager, so I was I started in the service desk, and then I went to account management. When I was in account management, I had to talk to people about their IT systems. And so these were people that were sort of managers of departments. And what I would do is I would develop service level agreements with them, that type of thing. And I remember having these conversations with people when they're talking about, you know, the chart of accounts that we've got in our CAB system, it doesn't really suit our particular business. And I remember thinking, you know, because I had a degree in chemistry and I got a degree in IT, and I'm like, chart of accounts? What's that? You know what I mean? I felt like it was a bit of a problem. So I had to educate myself on that. And actually, I went away and I studied accounting, and now I know very well exactly what a chart of accounts is, and I know how that works in a computer system. But I needed to know that in order to talk to these people so that I could work with them. And you'll find the same whatever industry it is you go into. That it's a really good idea to sort of educate yourself with the language of the people that you're dealing with. So for example, we can be at cross purposes if we're talking only computer stuff and they're talking only business stuff. Right? So if we say stuff like, you know, well, they might say stuff like, I can't print. What does it mean to us? It means a printer state. Yeah, I hope you get the idea, right? We have different ways of looking at it, and we have to sort of bring those together. Okay, so we have actually made it to the end of that chapter, for which I'm very, very happy. And so I'm going to stop. I have to go and reprimand my son because he's shouting, playing this dumb game. But I'm going to pause recording and I'll come back. Yeah, so summary of this lesson. The main important parts are, for example, having empathy, which is trying to understand the other person. So the other person is trying to communicate you with lots of different things. So they're communicating their emotions sometimes if they're really upset. Some people just don't get emotional, right? They're just sort of cool. And, in which case they're just going to communicate to you like facts. And that's fine. That makes it easier. But you have to understand and sort of be forgiving of people if they come to you with a bit of emotion, because that's normal also. It's kind of normal if the person is coming to you and what's happened is they've got lots of things to do today. And so far, those things are becoming unobtainable to them. The things that they wanted to achieve today are unattainable to you. So to get an idea how that feels, all you have to do is think about what happened to you when you were trying to drive to, I don't know, something that was important to you, and you had to be there at some certain time. And then things happened on the road, which held you up. People cut you off. The traffic was slow. How did you feel? Well, the person at their work is going to feel like that, except worse, right? And so, yeah, we have to be a bit like forgiving of them of that. And we have to empathize with them. And we have to try and get as much information as we can from them about what it is that we can do to help solve their incident. And so that's what this lesson was about. Over many years, psychologists have looked at this, and there's things that we can do to actually scrub up on our communication. We might think that, oh, I've been communicating for the last 20 years and it's been going okay. There's always something that we can do to sort of improve our communication. But generally speaking, that starts with us actually paying attention and trying to understand the other person. I'm going to kind of start talking about